The new engine looked very smart. Peter Sam watched with interest as one of the big engines shunted the low truck into place. Mr. Hugh was very pleased. "This is Rusty," he told Peter Sam. "Just the engine we need for doing odd jobs." "It's nice to meet you," Rusty smiled. Peter Sam bubbled with excitement. "Welcome to our railway," he whistled. Rusty was soon on the rails and being inspected by Mr. Hugh and the workmen, who were all impressed. "Come along, Rusty," smiled Mr. Hugh at last. "You can show us your paces." So the little diesel trundled happily up and down the wharf. Nearby passengers and a rather inquisitive Henry watched with interest. Sir Handel, however, sulked at the nearby water column. "What's all this?" he sniffed. "When we were told we'd be getting help, I was expecting a proper engine, not a little shoebox." "Our Rusty's as proper as you," replied Mr. Hugh with a dismissive wave. "I reckon we ought to give you a proper run, Rusty. You can take the next train up to the quarry. Let Sir Handel have the afternoon off." Rusty was excited, and Sir Handel was suddenly more cheerful. "It is a mercy to have some extra wheels around," he mused, to Rusty's amusement. Rusty soon had a line of trucks shunted and stood happily. Peter Sam was due up the line first with the afternoon passenger train. He whistled cheerfully as he passed. "Beep, beep, beep! Good luck, Rusty!" Rusty smiled happily, as did Mr. Hugh. "I think I'll drive you up myself," he grinned. He was already warming to the diesel. Rusty was honoured and chirped gaily away up the line. The journey went well at first, and Rusty was in high spirits. But as they trundled along, Rusty began to notice how rough the track bed was. "Oh dear," the little diesel thought. "These rails are ever so old. Somebody ought to fix them. I should mention it to Mr. Hugh." But before Rusty could speak, Mr. Hugh called out first. "You're running fine, Rusty," he called, "as smooth as any engine I've driven." That made Rusty very happy indeed. The thought of the rough track bed flew out of the diesel's radiator. "Why, thank you, sir," replied Rusty. "I'm very glad to—" Then there was trouble. With a clank and a loud crunch, a coupling snapped, and the frontmost truck bounced off of the rails. The little diesel felt terrible. "Oh, I am sorry, sir." There was a particular rough section inside the passing loop. Rusty had been so excited the little diesel hadn't taken care. "Never mind," sighed Mr. Hugh. "Could happen to any engine. Though we best get this mess sorted out. "Please," begged Rusty, "let me help. I ought to tidy up my mistakes." Mr. Hugh was pleasantly surprised. "Come along then," he said quickly. So they scampered back down the line, where they collected some workmen and supplies. Before long the party was back at the loop, and the derailed truck was levered back onto solid rails. By the time the job was finished, Peter Sam was coming back down. He took the workmen home with him as Rusty finally continued to the quarry. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hugh," sighed Rusty. "I should have been more careful." "Nonsense," smiled Mr. Hugh. "It was a simple accident. Besides, you did more than enough to make up for it with the recovery." "All these rails need fixing," said Rusty quietly. "I'd be glad to help do it." "Then it's a good thing that's what you're here for," chuckled Mr. Hugh. Rusty's eyes lit up. "Really? I thought I was for odd jobs, sir, but track maintenance sounds much nicer, sir." Mr. Hugh laughed warmly, and soon Rusty joined in. The little diesel was very glad to have a new home, but even happier to have a new purpose.